How do you miss someone dangerous when they're living right next door? How do you lose sight of a truth that was sitting only a few steps away? For almost 30 years, people searched for answers. Police searched. Volunteers searched. A whole community searched. And yet, the real truth was hidden right inside their own building, only yards away from the place where a little girl should have been safe. This is the story of Nikki Allen, a case that broke a family, shook an entire city, and exposed one of the biggest mistakes in an investigation. A mistake so serious that it took a new generation of science to finally uncover what really happened. Before we continue, I would love to know where you're watching this from. Your comments help me feel closer to my viewers, and I truly enjoy reading them. And if you want to support my work, you can join the channel as a member. Your support helps me create more detailed investigations and bring hidden stories to light. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss new episodes. Now, let's go back to where everything started. Nikki Allen was born on August 30, 1985, in Sunderland, a city in the northeast of England. She was a bright, sweet little girl, small in size but full of energy, the kind of child who could make anyone smile. Her mother, Sharon, was raising Nikki and her 3 other daughters almost completely on her own. Life was not easy. Money was tight, work was long, and Sharon had to divide her time carefully between her job and her children. But she tried her best. She made sure her girls were fed, clean, dressed, and went to school. She worked hard, came home tired, and still found the strength to care for them. They lived in a large apartment building, one of those tall, echoing blocks where neighbors know each other well. Sharon's parents, Nikki's grandparents, lived in the same building too. They often helped babysit the children when Sharon was working late. The building was old and crowded, but it felt like a small community. Everyone talked. Everyone shared things. Everyone looked out for each other. At least, that's what people believed. A normal evening turned strange. The evening of October 8, 1992, started like any other. Sharon had a headache. Nothing serious, just the kind of headache that comes after a long day of working and parenting. So she decided to take Nikki to her parents' apartment to get a tablet and rest for a few minutes. Nikki loved her grandparents, so she happily followed her mother out the door. Inside the warm apartment, everything seemed normal. Nikki's grandmother chatted while doing some chores. Sharon sat down trying to relax. But then the vacuum cleaner started. The loud sound bothered Nikki. She didn't like noise and she didn't want to sit there while the vacuum roared across the carpet. So she asked, "Can I go home?" The apartments were only about 150 yards apart. A short walk. She knew the way. She had walked it many times before. Sharon didn't worry. The building was familiar, close, and usually safe. She told Nikki she could go home, and the little girl quickly left the apartment, skipping toward the stairs. Sharon stayed only a little longer before deciding to head home too. The first sign that something is wrong. When Sharon opened the door to her own apartment, she expected to see Nikki inside. Maybe watching TV. Maybe playing with her sisters. Maybe already getting ready for bed. But the apartment was empty. The lights were on, but her daughter was nowhere. At first, Sharon wasn't scared, just confused. Maybe Nikki had gone to a neighbor's door. Maybe she had gone to her grandparents again. Maybe she was in the hallway. So Sharon went back outside, calling her daughter's name. No answer. She checked with neighbors. No one had seen her. Minutes turned into worry. Worry grew into fear. Nikki was obedient. She never wandered. She never stayed out late. She knew better. And now, she was gone. A community rises in panic. Within minutes, neighbors and friends gathered outside. People grabbed flashlights. Some went into stairwells, others searched the yard. More and more residents joined them. And within an hour, more than 100 people, neighbors, family, friends, even strangers, were searching for the 7-year-old girl. Police arrived quickly. They checked apartments. They walked the streets. They asked anyone they could find for information. But the city was dark. The building was full of shadows. And no one had seen Nikki. Her disappearance spread through the neighborhood like fire. People were shocked. Where could a 7-year-old go in just a few minutes? How could she vanish so quietly? The search continued all night. Officers used flashlights to scan the riverbank, playgrounds, corners, alleys, every area near the building. At sunrise, the search began again. The police planned a press conference that morning to ask the public for help. They wanted more volunteers, more eyes, more support. But just minutes before the conference started, someone found something. A group of volunteers searching near an abandoned building spotted something small on the ground. A pair of children's shoes. Next to them, a child's jacket. Hope turned into dread. The volunteers went inside the old building, dark, empty, and silent. And in the basement, they made a heartbreaking discovery. The news spread through the neighborhood immediately. People cried. People shouted. People demanded answers. A little girl had been lost, and now she was gone forever. And the pressure on the police, already huge, became unbearable. The pressure to find the truth. Police officers went door to door, searching for anyone who might have seen Nikki that night. They questioned residents. They talked to pub customers. They spoke to people who had been outside at 10 p.m. Finally, they found a witness. Someone who said they saw Nikki near a local pub across the street. It was a small detail, but it would soon lead the investigation down a very dangerous path. A path that took years to undo. The hours after Nikki disappeared were filled with confusion. Everyone wanted answers, and fast. But answers were not easy to find. Sharon, Nikki's mother, said she returned home and noticed Nikki was missing around 8:40 p.m. That was the time she remembered. But this didn't match the witness statement police had collected earlier. Still, detectives understood that memories can blur during emotional moments. A mother in panic can easily lose track of minutes or even hours. And after the heartbreaking discovery made the next morning, Sharon was completely devastated. It was possible that she and Nikki had visited the grandparents' apartment a little later than she thought, which would make the witness's timeline fit more closely. Soon another woman came forward. She told police she had been sitting inside her car parked near the apartment building that night. A little before 10 p.m., she noticed a man walking alongside a small girl. Both were heading toward the abandoned building where the volunteers would later find clues. Police believed the girl could very well have been Nikki. And if she was calmly walking next to him, that meant something chilling. She probably knew him. A child that young doesn't follow a stranger into the dark unless she feels safe with them. A third witness who lived in an apartment near the empty building reported hearing a loud scream that night. She didn't see anything, but the sound was unforgettable. She wasn't sure if it was a child or an adult, but it gave investigators another piece of the puzzle. Then came a strange and unsettling tip. An anonymous caller phoned police and claimed that a man had approached them on the night of Nikki's disappearance. The caller said the man looked distressed and told them he had done something terrible. But detectives couldn't verify the story. No other witness saw this man, and the caller refused to give personal details. It could have been real, or it could have been a cruel prank. Police had no way of knowing. With all these scattered statements, investigators tried to form a timeline. They believed that Nikki might not have gone straight home after leaving her grandparents' apartment. Maybe she walked outside instead. Maybe she decided to go toward the road where the pub stood, a spot where people came and went all evening. A busy place. A noisy place. A place where someone familiar might have seen her. Police suspected that the person who approached Nikki that night knew her. Someone she recognized. Someone who knew the building. Someone who could easily convince her to walk with him without raising alarm. They imagined that this person led Nikki to the old warehouse, the same place where evidence was later found. Something then went wrong. Something fast. Something that caused the man to panic. Detectives continued gathering information. Soon they obtained footage from a street camera near the abandoned building. It showed a blurry image of a man walking beside a small girl. The quality was too poor to identify either face. They couldn't even confirm with certainty that the girl was Nikki. But the timing, location, and witness statements made it a strong possibility. Desperate for leads, police shared the unclear images with the media. If someone recognized the man's shape, posture, or the way he moved, it could break the case wide open. But nothing came from it. Not a single solid lead. Still, tips from the public kept pouring in, more than 100 in total. Out of these, detectives noticed something interesting. Several people, none of whom knew each other, mentioned the same name. A 24-year-old man named George Heron. He had moved into Nikki's apartment building only a few weeks earlier. He lived with his sister. He was unemployed. He kept to himself. That alone didn't mean anything. But the witnesses added more details. Multiple people said they had seen him inside the pub on the night Nikki went missing. According to them, he ordered chips topped with onions and cheese. A simple detail, but one that caught the attention of detectives. Because Sharon told police that Nikki loved those same chips. It was a strange coincidence. Then detectives spoke with George's sister. And her words changed everything. She said that on the night of the incident, George came home acting very strangely. The moment he walked in, he went straight to the bathroom and stayed inside for about half an hour. She heard water running. When he finally came out, his clothes were wet, as if he had washed them. This pushed police to the next step. They obtained a search warrant for the apartment. Inside, they found a knife with a blade size that matched details from the early forensic reports. They also collected some of George's clothing. According to police, experts discovered biological traces on a few of the items. That was enough to take him in for questioning. At first, George denied everything. He denied knowing Nikki. He denied ever speaking to her. He denied leaving the apartment that evening. He denied being at the pub, even though several people said they saw him there. As the hours passed, he changed parts of his story. He admitted that he had seen Nikki before. He admitted that he had spoken to her a few times in the past. But he still insisted he stayed home all night. The interview lasted 3 long days. And by the end of it, detectives said they finally had what they needed. George confessed. He told investigators that he saw Nikki near the pub that evening, led her toward the abandoned building, and caused the events that followed. With this confession, police charged him. The community exploded. People were furious. People shouted outside the station demanding justice. Officers had to protect George from being attacked by crowds who believed he was responsible. Originally, the trial was supposed to be held in Sunderland. But that was impossible. Every resident hated George. Every resident believed he was guilty. Finding an unbiased jury was out of the question. So the trial was moved to a different city. Even then, people from Sunderland traveled to the courthouse. Some tried to force their way inside, determined to see the man they believed had taken Nikki's life. The prosecution relied heavily on George's confession. But soon, serious problems appeared. The judge watched all 12 video recordings of the interrogation. And after reviewing them, he made a shocking conclusion. The police had used pressure and improper tactics to get George to confess. Detectives told him they had strong evidence, even though they didn't. They kept him under intense stress for hours. They pushed him emotionally and mentally. And eventually they got the confession they wanted, but not necessarily the truth. The witnesses who claimed they had seen George at the pub were uncertain. They admitted he merely looked like the man they remembered. None of them were completely sure. To make things worse, police had arranged a lineup. Witnesses were asked to point to the man they believed they saw that night. Not one person chose George. The knife and the clothing also became questionable. Was there really anything linking them to Nikki? Or was it just pressure inside the interrogation room? No one knew for sure. The case that once seemed so clear was suddenly falling apart. Only one thing was clear to everyone watching the case. The judge did not see the new evidence as strong enough. From this, people understood that the specialists either found no clear traces, or the traces they found did not belong to Nikki at all. George kept saying the same thing, that after almost 3 days of non-stop questioning, he felt helpless, scared, and without proper support. He said the pressure broke him, and that is why he said things he did not mean. Even the confession raised questions. George described a very violent scene, but when investigators compared his story with the real forensic findings, nothing matched. The details were different, almost like he was repeating something fed to him. But the biggest turning point, the moment when the entire case shook, came from an unexpected person, the boyfriend of George's sister. Police documents showed that this man had originally told officers that on the night Nikki went missing, George left the home for almost an hour. That 1 hour matched the time when Nikki disappeared. That statement made George look guilty. But then, during the trial, this man completely changed his story. In court, he said everything he told police earlier was a lie. He now said he remembered that night very clearly. George never left the house. He said all of them were sitting together watching TV and nothing strange happened. And then the shocking truth came out. He confessed that he did tell the police the truth at first. But after that, officers arrested him, accused him of helping hide a crime, and kept him in custody for 5 days. 5 long days. He said he was terrified, alone, pressured, and eventually he gave in. He lied and told them what they wanted, that George had left the house. Only after he repeated this false story did the investigators release him. Because of this new revelation, the judge removed 7 out of the 12 interrogation videos from the trial, including the confession. Most of the case's backbone was now gone. After 6 intense weeks filled with arguments, emotions, and tension so thick it was hard to breathe, the jury reached a deadlock. They could not agree. And in the end, the judge had no choice. George was found not guilty. That single moment exploded like a bomb inside the courtroom. People shouted. Some cried. Others threatened to take action on their own. Nikki's mother collapsed from the shock, unable to handle what she had just heard. But the judge's ruling was final. All legal charges against George were dropped. He walked out a free man. Yet freedom did not mean peace. George could never return to the building where Nikki's family lived. To them, and to almost everyone in the community, he was still responsible. The streets whispered. The neighbors stared. His own sister was forced to move. Every corner of their old home carried danger. Their fear wasn't just emotional, it was real. A few days after the trial, unknown people set fire to the office of the lawyer who defended George. It was clear the community was angry, extremely angry. Because of the growing threats, the court decided to protect George. They gave him a new identity and moved him to an unknown place. Even the police could do nothing more. The law was clear. If someone is found not guilty in court, they cannot be tried again for the same crime. Nikki's mother refused to accept this. Her pain pushed her forward. A year later, she filed a civil lawsuit against George. This type of case cannot send someone to prison, but it can assign responsibility. George did not show up for the lawsuit. He had a new name and no one knew where he lived. In the end, the court ordered him to pay £7,000. But since he had disappeared, he never paid anything. As if losing her daughter wasn't enough, Nikki's mother faced another cruel blow. Certain news outlets began criticizing her. They said she did not watch over her daughters enough, and that this lack of supervision led to Nikki being outside late. These comments hurt her deeply, but she never stopped fighting for her daughter. She wrote letters to the police chief, to politicians, and even to the Queen. She begged them all to look at the case again, to change laws if needed, to find new evidence, to give her daughter justice. But nothing worked. For many years the case stayed frozen with no new leads, and no arrests. Then came 2014, to 22 years after Nikki lost her life. For the first time in decades, something finally changed. Investigators arrested a different man who was already serving a life sentence for other serious crimes. Many wondered if he could finally be the person behind Nikki's case. But after months of checking and comparing, the investigation concluded he was not involved. Another dead end. Still, Nikki's mother did not give up. In 2017, on the 25th anniversary of Nikki's passing, she pushed for another full review. She believed that modern DNA technology, far more advanced than what existed in 1992, could reveal the truth. And this time, investigators agreed. Specialists re-examined Nikki's clothes using new forensic tools. This was the moment she had waited for, a real breakthrough. Hidden deep in the fabric, they found a small amount of DNA. It was enough to create a complete profile of an unknown man. The first thing investigators did was compare it to George's DNA. The result was clear and immediate. It was not a match. This changed everything. Investigators made a public request, asking all men who lived near Nikki's family during that time to voluntarily provide their DNA. Dozens came forward. Investigators then began tracking down everyone else who lived in that area more than 25 years ago. It was a slow, difficult process taking many months. Altogether, they collected samples from more than 800 men. And then, in 2018, something finally happened. The DNA from Nikki's clothes matched a man named David Boyd. At the time of the incident, Boyd was 25. He lived on the same floor as Nikki's grandparents, only 3 doors away. Even more shocking, he was dating a woman who babysat Nikki and her sisters. Nikki knew him. He trusted him. Boyd was never considered a suspect. Not once. The reason? Because from day one, police believed George was responsible. Even when Boyd was arrested years later for separate serious offenses, investigators did not recheck his past. They were so focused on George that they had never even looked in Boyd's direction. Boyd's history was troubling long before Nikki's case. He had been arrested twice in 1986. During one of those incidents, he told his psychologist that he struggled with dangerous impulses and could not control them. All of this should have made him a top suspect. But no one looked into him. Boyd was finally arrested in April 2010. He denied everything. He said he was at home at the time. But when investigators re-interviewed witnesses, they discovered this was not true. He had left the apartment for about an hour, the same window of time Nikki went missing. Boyd could not explain how his DNA ended up on Nikki's clothing, so he refused to confess. The trial did not begin until 2023. Boyd stayed silent, letting his lawyer speak for him. The defense tried to argue that the DNA might have transferred accidentally. Boyd even told police that maybe he leaned from his balcony and Nikki was walking under it. But the prosecution believed something else. They said Boyd saw Nikki walking alone. Because she knew him, because he dated her babysitter, she trusted him. He used that trust to take her into an abandoned building. And this time, the evidence finally spoke clearly. After hearing everything, the jury took only 2 hours. Just 2 hours to reach a unanimous decision. Boyd was found guilty. The courtroom was silent when the judge finally spoke. It was May 23rd, and after months of hearing evidence, he delivered the sentence that everyone had been waiting for. David Boyd was given life in prison with a chance to ask for parole after 29 years. For Nikki's family, this decision did not feel like justice. Her mother had waited more than 3 decades for the truth to come out. She had watched investigators make mistake after mistake. She had watched the wrong man be accused. And she had watched the real person responsible walk freely for years. Now, even after the truth was revealed, the idea that he might one day ask for release felt completely unfair. But the judge's decision was final. Even though Boyd had a chance for parole someday, it was only a possibility, not a guarantee. And in 29 years he would be an elderly man. No one knew if he would ever live long enough to see that day. Still, the pain his actions caused could not be undone. For the first time in decades, another voice also returned to this story. It was the voice of George Heron, the man who had once been accused and nearly lost everything. He had stayed silent for most of his life, trying to escape the shadow of the crime. But after Boyd was found guilty, George agreed to speak. In the interview, his voice was calm but heavy. He explained how the early investigation had destroyed his life and the lives of the people he cared about. His family had been threatened. His home had been attacked. He had lived years under a different name, trying to hide from a mistake he did not make. George said he still carried the fear and trauma from those months of interrogation. What hurt him most was that the police had never admitted their mistakes. But now, after Boyd's conviction, something unexpected happened. For the first time in more than 30 years, the police wrote to George. In a short letter, they apologized for what he had gone through. They encouraged him to move forward and build a new life. For George, it was a strange moment. A small piece of closure after years of silence. Meanwhile, Nikki's mother continued to speak about what had gone wrong in the case. She said that the early investigation had failed her daughter at every step. Important clues were missed. The wrong person had been blamed. And for decades, everyone had believed that justice would never be found. She knew that the new detectives had worked hard to uncover the truth, and she was grateful for them, but she could not forget the mistakes of the past. Her daughter would never come home, but at least the world now knew what really happened. And the man responsible could no longer hide behind lies or technical mistakes. At the end of the case, Nikki's mother thanked everyone who had helped her fight for justice. She thanked the new team of detectives who had taken their time to re-examine everything. She thanked the people who never stopped supporting her. And she thanked those who kept Nikki's memory alive. For her, this story was never just about punishment. It was about making sure her daughter was not forgotten. It was about telling the truth even when others doubted her. And it was about reminding the world that one small mistake in an investigation can change the entire course of a case. Today, a new generation knows the real story. Not the rushed assumptions of the early 1990s, but the truth uncovered through patience, science, and determination. Nikki's mother continues to speak about the case, hoping that no other family will go through what she endured. And as we reach the end of this story, we remember a little girl who should have been safe walking home. A girl whose life was taken too soon. And a mother who refused to give up, even when the world turned against her. If you watched this story until the end, thank you. Your time and attention help keep these cases alive, help us learn from the past, and help spread awareness about the importance of real, careful investigation. Don't forget to share your thoughts below and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.